Within days, I had walked into a bank, put the gun to a teller's head, and robbed the first bank. The sickest part of it all, that I don't want to even tell a soul, is that it was my daughter's first birthday. I actually had kind of a normal childhood. My parents were, I think, 13 and 14 when they met, and totally fell in love and had me at a really young age. So when you're growing up, you don't really think about the age of your parents, like that they might not have it all figured out. So in my eyes, I never measured up to my mother. She always wanted me to be prettier, thinner, smarter, faster, whatever, more. I could never remember a compliment ever. And I remember, I don't know, when I started to hit high school, like I was watching these kids around me and I seemed to have my act together. I was good grades, I was active, I was ambitious, I wasn't that rebellious. I remember feeling like my mom was young, but never really understanding how young. I knew that from stories that she had been abused, but I didn't connect with what it felt like for her. She was just my mom. I knew by meeting her mom, very rare occasion, I could kind of see the cycle, but I didn't know what to call it. I just remember this like massive hole growing inside of me, and I never told a soul. I never told a soul, and I pretended like I was okay, like I was the MC at events, I had decent friends. I started to drink, I started to cheat, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So I sensed that I was exceptional. So it was just this crazy conflict inside that I literally had no idea who to talk to about it. I felt like I would betray my family if I talked about anything. I come from an Irish Catholic family that doesn't talk about much of anything. I always laugh because my dad's Irish Catholic from New York and my mother was a Southern Baptist from Alabama. So here you go. Explains a lot. I actually remember later on in life that someone asked me how I took on the worst traits of my father and the worst traits of my mother. And that was a trip to hear. Like, how did I not take on their best? The cool thing is that I understand my parents now. I think none of us really understand our parents until we're parents. And the coolest thing is my dad, he never gave up on me. He brought my daughter to see me every other week, and my mother turned out to be this amazing woman. I get them now. They did a good job. So I knew that I was exceptional, yet I never felt skinny enough, pretty enough, or like enough. And not a soul knew, because I was still at the same time excelling in areas, you know? And so I didn't talk about it. I rebelled against it. I got mad about it, but I never told a soul that I was dying and I could feel it. And I felt like such a loser. And everybody would say, why? I mean, why would I do things? You know, I don't think anybody cared to ask why, actually. I just saw them see that I was starting to fall. And by all intents purposes, I had this picture perfect family. So, and they were doing their best, right? But you don't know that when you're a kid. And really what happened is that I remember believing that I was worthy enough to go to law school, but yet if I got in trouble for drinking one time, it seemed like it was the end of the world. And I was the biggest piece of crap on the planet for doing it. There wasn't dialogue around that it's common and that these things happen. Or I don't remember that dialogue happening because I chose a different story. When I started drinking, I, of course, like everybody else, took on another persona. And so the inhibitions went away. And so I was just happy. Like, I just felt like relief from the internal conflict. But the problem is that alcohol led to sleeping with someone and unplanned pregnancy. It just started to unravel very quickly. I had never used drugs. I graduated from high school really never using any hardcore drugs ever. I was super late in any kind of rebellion. I had struggled to go to college. I had just started to just feel crazy inside because of the conflict. So to be like, if I'm gonna go there, if I'm not gonna give a shit, I'm just not gonna give a shit. I'm sort of an all or nothing. And that's when I met my abuser. And when I met him, I remember him saying things that I had been longing to hear my whole life. And I remember feeling over the top, madly crazy, just, this is the guy of my dreams, until 2 weeks in, I was thrown across the room and choked till I was unconscious. I was so sheltered that I had no idea I was sheltered. I mean, how do you know you're sheltered until you're exposed to real life? And no one talked about drugs. No one talked about abortion. No one talked about abuse or a psych. I literally thought I was the only woman in the world ever experiencing this. I had no connection to the world. And I know that some of my friends tried to help me, but it was not even that long till I was totally isolated. Actually, at that time, I hadn't used drugs. I was drinking, and it was within a short amount of time that it was a daily occurrence. And 20 years ago, the laws were not the same. Police were called, and then unless I testified, then nothing would happen unless they could see a visible mark. I actually remember O.J. Simpson chase and him physically beating me, banging my head into a wall as I was watching the white Bronco. Totally like, how is this even happening? I remember one time that I ran away and it took him 3 days to find me in Windsor at my friend's house, and he said he was gonna kill everybody in there, and I believed him. And he bit a hole through my arm trying to kidnap me. You could see the teeth marks all the way to my bone. I think that was like one of the beginnings of the end for me. I had a daughter with him. I remember the day that she was laying, she was asleep on a bed, and she was days old, and he had beat me so bad. And just months before, I think it was a month before, I had days until she was gonna be due, and I had sat in a dark room with a loaded gun in my mouth, determining if I could hit 911 and she might survive in my womb. And then I brought her home from the hospital, and that night when he beat me for the first time since she was born, I had taken that gun and put it to his head. I remember hearing voices. I don't care what anybody thinks about that. Like, just myself, I don't know what it was, but I just had that I wasn't gonna kill him only because I was worried about her ears. He called my mom, and my mom came and peeled. It was a 45-minute ride, and she peeled each finger slowly off the revolver because she was afraid I was gonna do it. I can't say that I left forever. I think I ran 2 or 3 times, and he found me every time, and I could have gotten away, but I didn't think I could. And the day that the beginning of my criminal life was, I was about to be kicked out on the street with my daughter. He didn't care. And I had gone through a drive-through, and I just remember hearing that in my head that just rob a bunch of bakes and run. It was a crazy first thought, and I didn't even take it as reality, but I went home that day, and I remember he choked me so hard that I had to slide my baby down the side of my body just so that she didn't crash to the floor, and he didn't care. And then he dragged me into the living room and was kicking me. And I pretended to pass out, like I had done that a couple times, so that he would stop. And this time I watched him. I had one eye open. I could hear her crying in the other room, and he walked to the door, and he turned around, and he thought I was still passed out, and he kicked me in the gut 3 times, like literally was dead that day. Within days, I had walked into a bank and put the gun to a teller's head and robbed the first bank. Later, the next week, I found the casino for the first time. I lost all that money. I started living this double life. I would be home being beat and then sneak away and live this fancy life. And then I would lose all the money. And then I'd go rob another bank. I was down to I don't know, so skinny. My mom and dad took my daughter from me. Then it was on. I remember that I'd taken a bunch of pills. I had done everything, trying to kill myself, and I didn't really want to die. And I certainly believed also that you wouldn't go to heaven. So I just said, I'm gonna get shot during a robbery, and that's how I'll go out. That my daughter would be better without me. When I talk about that woman, it's like an out-of-body experience. It's like I'm talking about somebody else. And I robbed 9 more banks. No baby. In fact, halfway through, he figured it out. There was my sketch of me on every newspaper around here. There was FBI wanting me. There was tons of media looking for this woman because it was so rare for a woman to do it by herself. I had taken on such an alternate personality that I had convinced myself that my story was true, that I had to do it. And so when I would take over a bank, I would tell the tellers that I was sorry, and I was. That there was a man outside making me do this. And in my mind and in my fantasy, there was, just not the way I was saying it. The day I was arrested was the best day of my life. I'd like to say it was the birth of my daughter. I'd like to say a whole lot of other things, but it was one of the top days. And I remember thinking that. I think it was because I knew I was about to die. I was arrested because I was so strung out that a teller had recognized me, and she followed me out to the car because I was so gone that I didn't notice that it wasn't open yet, and my sketch had just come through the fax machine. My mom, so gone. I was looking at a life sentence. I had so much time over my head, and I fought my case, but I was tired and I didn't want to fight. I was happy for everyone to know the truth about who I really was. The time that I was sentenced was by pure miracle. I had an attorney and a team and a judge that was about to retire. Judge Woodruff, you saved my life. I remember him standing there, and I could hear my mom wailing in the background. It's funny how this hurts and not the abuse anymore. Because he looked at me and said, I think a very bad thing happened to a very good girl. And he gave me a chance. Because I had prayed pretty damn hard. And I went to prison, and I just remember during all these programs and halfway houses and counseling and institutes and damn bubble tests, psychology and all these things, I just remember like getting to prison and looking at everyone so lost and alone, and just why? Like, why is this happening? I wanted to know why. I remember fighting it, you know? I'm going to do this. I was still a little bit of a hard ass about it because I had to survive prison, right? I don't really look like I was going to spend that much time in prison, whatever that means. And I remember finally, oh God, finally breaking and getting on my hands and knees, and I ran to my cell. I'd been there a year, and imagine all these years of waiting for sentencing, and was still so lost, and I ran with every ounce of my being and jumped to my knees and asked God for help. That I was done. And it's funny because it took a really long time for me to get fucking done. And in that moment right then, God said that you are going to help a lot of women. Right then, he gave me crossing the Jordan. Right in that moment. It sounds crazy, but right then I knew what I was going to do. It was in 1998. It's a long time ago. And I just remember looking at all these women and men along the way. And everywhere I went, they told me I was a victim. I was like, how am I a victim? And I robbed 9 banks by myself. How am I sick and never gonna get away from this disease? Like everywhere, every counseling session, everything. I just somehow had this out of body experience through everything. Like, no, this is not the answer to getting better, you know? And I just never bought in. I got home. I didn't know how to live. I didn't know how to transition. I went from high school to abuse to prison. I didn't have much in between. And then I got home and I got dumped off in the halfway house in the worst part of San Francisco. And I didn't know how to be free. And so I stumbled and I came home to a very angry daughter. I remember the day I said goodbye to her to go to prison. I mean, she was 2 years old and oh my God, how did I do this to her? How did I rob 9 banks and leave my daughter? Like, what? And then I come home and she's so mad. She had every right to be mad. So I fell and I fell and I fell and I ran away from my calling and I didn't think about crossing the Jordan and I didn't think about anything but me again. And I did a little drugs and I woke up one day and I remember hearing in my soul, when did I not believe in second chances? When did I make it up that if I fell, I had to fall forever? Like, when did I decide that? So I just got up and stopped. And not that long after, I met Michael. And I had shared this big dream with everybody when I came home and no one wanted to hear it. No one cared. Michael came. And I had never had anybody believe in me like that. My mom had died the year before and I began to understand her. I remembered thinking, wow, I really misunderstood you, woman. I just didn't know this whole time that you were just a kid and that you didn't know what you were doing because nobody taught you how to do it. And that she was so sweet the day we said goodbye. We had to take her off life support and she just told me, just live more, baby, just live more. And I promised I'd never use drugs again and I didn't. And I told her I was gonna do absolutely everything that I told her I was gonna do. Like everything. And I did. And that I came alive when I helped women. And that I knew that I could help women that felt like I did. And that I spoke their language. And that I knew how they felt. And that I knew how to help. And that I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that the things that were being taught to us were not helping. And I shared all that with Michael, and I remember the day he just said, let's do this. And here we are. I knew that my very pissed off kid would someday see that I was helping so many people because of her and that she was worth fighting for. So what's my life like today? I'm a grandma. I know I don't look like it, but I'm a grandma. And, oh, my daughter, Chelsea. We had the bumpiest roads, and she is my best friend today. My youngest are, I did it right with them, and my grandkids are getting the best of me. I learned how to live life, and on my journey I saw that people just don't know how to live life. If you haven't been taught, how do you know? And we're just all broken because we just don't know. And there's no good or bad in it, and there's no really right or wrong. We just don't know. And unless you have somebody to come alongside of you and cheer you on and love you through it and not judge you through it, you just don't know. And some people die not knowing. I believe in being responsible for what happened. I'm not a victim. I did those horrible things to those people, and I paid my debt to society. I have a dream of being one of the only bank robbers to fully pay our debt. I may pay it every single month. I have a dream, big check to the bank. Honestly, I'm terrified of all this because I actually bank currently at the local bank I robbed. Think about that. And they love me anyway, and they know. I think anything's possible. I think everything can come full circle, and that there's no limits, and that you can have cheerleaders behind you. I have a lot of them. And anybody can do anything because everything is possible.
I'm Dana Bryant, and this is my full disclosure.